My husband Paul and I have a son. His name is Hawken, and he's 19 years old today. But when he was 5 years old, he was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And we had never heard of the word Duchenne. And so we did what most parents do, and we searched for an organization that we would want to be involved in because we both have, business backgrounds and knew that we'd want to be very active in trying to raise money to fund a cure. And so we couldn't really find an organization that seemed to have the same sense of urgency that we did. And so we, never really intended to start a nonprofit, but just because we came across some what we felt were the most impactful research opportunities, we went ahead and formed a nonprofit organization called CureDuchenne. CureDuchenne is focused primarily on two aspects. One is research, and one is on care. CureDuchenne has been a leading funder of Duchenne research over the past 13 years. We funded PTC Therapeutics, Prosenza, which was later bought by BioMarin, and then Sarepta Therapeutics. All of these companies have gone into clinical trials for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and two of them have been before the FDA. Actually, three of them have been before the FDA. And so our early funding has really been very impactful in getting these drugs to the point of being in first clinical trials and then FDA review. So I was obviously very disappointed with the outcome of Sarepta's advisory committee meeting. I think that there was ample evidence from the parents that showed that they really, really, really believed that this drug is working for their kids. I also understand the FDA's position is they are a data-driven organization, and they did not feel comfortable with the scope of the clinical trial that was conducted before. However, the head of the division that reviews this particular drug, Janet Woodcock, made it very clear to the advisory committee that they indeed should be considering the patient testimony and hearing what the parents have to say. So I think exon skipping does work. I think that it's a cornerstone of what is going to be a combination therapy that ultimately is going to be needed. I don't think there's any single drug that is going to cure this disease. And I think that if we can get the first generation of exon skipping approved, like eteplirsen, then that leaves the door open for further generations of more, next generation exon skipping drugs. At the same time, exon skipping is not expected to treat the heart, and cardiac failure is the primary cause of death in Duchenne. And during the past several years, as eteplirsen and Sarepta have been moving through the regulatory process, CureDuchenne has been funding other therapies like Capricor Therapeutics, which is based in LA, which has a stem cell therapy for cardiac failure for Duchenne patients. We've more recently funded a gene therapy program in North Carolina with Bamboo Therapeutics, which again is moving us a little bit closer to the ultimate cure in terms of actually having a permanent or semi-permanent cure or treatment for these boys. We're dealing with other aspects of the disease that are inflammation and fibrosis. And so we funded a company called Myotherix and Resurrex, which are dealing with the downstream pathology of this disease. And so CureDuchenne is really dedicated to looking at the whole disease and coming up with solutions. It's a little bit like a puzzle where there's a lot of different parts that have to fit well together. And so we're looking at the whole patient, the whole disease, and figuring out what are the different components that together will work as a cure. So my advice to families right now that have sons with Duchenne is, first of all, to not give up hope. When our son was diagnosed, there were a handful of drugs or a handful of research projects and no clinical trials at all. And now we have, multiple clinical trials, and some of them are moving along quite nicely. So first of all, I think that we all need to remain hopeful. I think something else that is really important, especially now in today's age of social media, is to understand that sharing a Facebook post or signing a petition or going and lobbying in front of Congress is not everything. And although those are all important things to do and being connected with the community is very important, if CureDuchenne and other organizations hadn't funded this research early on, we wouldn't be having an AdCom committee. We wouldn't be talking to regulators. And so, we're very far away from having the combination of drugs that ultimately are going to cure our sons. We've made great progress, but we have to keep working at funding the research that is going to keep a development pipeline full, because in drug development, as you well know, most drugs don't work. And we have to be cognizant of that. And we have to not all hang our hats on one drug. And we've seen this before with PTC, with BioMarin, that when we, as a community, put all of our hope into one drug, we leave ourselves open for huge disappointment and setbacks. And so the more drugs we have in the pipeline, the more confident we can feel that we're going to have a solution and a cocktail of drugs for our boys. So CureDuchenne Cares is an initiative that we started many years ago. Our son Hawken had a physical therapist that was with him from the very beginning. Her name is Jennifer Wallace, and she basically took it upon herself to become an expert in Duchenne and started treating a lot of boys in Southern California. And families around the country heard about Jennifer and wanted her to come and educate them on proper care for their boys. And so we started sending Jennifer out with our scientists to go to communities around the country, and she holds workshops for physical therapists to teach them on the nuances and the specialty of Duchenne, because many times PTs are trained in a way that is kind of counterintuitive for Duchenne care and can actually do harm. And so Jennifer holds workshops all over the country for licensed physical therapists who want to learn about Duchenne. And then the next day she holds workshops for the parents to learn about stretching, orthotics, equipment, nutrition, everything they need to know about Duchenne. And so it's grown organically, and this year it's become a rather large program where we're going to lots of different communities, and we've just had a tremendous response from the families. Sometimes for many of these families, it's the first time they've learned about care issues for their son. So we've heard from a lot of clinicians that treat Duchenne boys that many boys stop walking, not because of muscle weakness, but because of contractures where there's deformities and there's mechanical difficulty. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is just a heartbreaking fact, because what we are trying to do is extend ambulation as long as we can, and physical therapy is such an important part of